and surprising to see the role of women, not just in being mom to their boys, but in impacting the whole culture. Talk about that just for a minute.
Well, in a number of ways, you know, one of the things that I think moms are often concerned about is emotionally, how their sons are doing emotionally, how to relate with them emotionally. And with good reason. You know, our teenage boys tend to put this real blustery kind of shell up that nothing hurts them. And the truth is that emotionally they're very fragile, emotionally, especially at that age. And so moms can be very helpful. You know, the one, I guess with males, because we don't understand our emotions real well, so emotions like vulnerability, fear, anxiety can feel a little unmanly, if you will, kind of humiliating. But the one emotion that we're very comfortable with is anger, and so we have
macho.
We have an instinct to cover those. Exactly, it's manly, and I can remember, like at about age 12, coming from an alcoholic home, kind of a dangerous place. I can remember when I first realized that if I just got mad, I didn't have to feel that humiliating emotion of being afraid anymore.
Because that seemed wussy.
Yeah, and I thought, this is great. I'll never be afraid again for the rest of my life. Well, that was ridiculous. I just ended up spending most of my adult life being angry because I was really afraid, because I'd never had a man show me how a man lives his life, how a man solves problems, what my role as a father, as a husband were, things like that.
And look at you. Not only did you figure it out for your life and for your family, but you're helping other families. I read your story and I thought, I know this guy. This is the man who set out to find out what great men were by reading biographies of great leaders in history. And what was your surprise discovery, Rick?
Right, yeah, I found, you know, one of the things that I wanted to do was, I was at a point in life where really I was ready to take my life. I mean, I'd accomplished, you know, I had a successful business, I had money, I had everything that, you know, our world would tell you should make you happy, and I was just miserable. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was try to find out what, you know, I wanted to live a life of significance. So I started reading biographies of men who had been great men throughout history, and the one common denominator that struck me with all of them is that they were Christians. And I thought, wow, that is really strange, because the home I was raised in, you know, Christianity was a crutch for weak people, and
not real men.
All Christians were hypocrites, you know, and that kind of thing. And so it was a real epiphany for me to try to figure out, you know, this different worldview, and I've been following that pretty closely for years now. And the truth is there's not very many great men in history who weren't great men of faith. Almost every man, if you look, was a great man of faith.
Isn't
So
that a wonderful discovery?
I think it speaks a lot to the foundation that we need to lay for men to be held accountable to different.
So what do boys fear most? Teenage boys.
I think boys fear a lot of the same things that men fear. We fear being appearing incompetent, inadequate, unmanly. I think especially with teenage boys, there's some issues about whether you're man enough. For instance, boys who tend to go through puberty later in life, a lot of times suffer some psychological scars that they carry on even into manhood, no matter how successful or manly they eventually become. So
it's failure on any level.
I think it is. I think to fail for a male is one of the most frightening things that we can do. And we cover that, again, with a lot of bluster and a hard shell. So, but it's one of the reasons why, you know, wives have such an influence in their husbands with the words that they speak to them, is because as males we do tend to cover our vulnerable underbelly, if you will, with this hard shell, and the only person that we ever let really in there is our wife. And she knows us better than anybody. And so if our wife disrespects us, if our mother disrespects us as a boy, what does that tell the rest of the world?
Exactly.
It tells the rest of the world that we're not worthy of respect, which is the one thing that all males want.
I remember a woman saying to me, Ephesians 5:33, wives must respect their husbands. She said, Moira, I've learned that applies to my teenage son as well.
Absolutely.
He needs it just as much. What else does my teenage son need from me in the shaping of the man God wants him to be, whether he shows an interest or not?
Right. Well,
what do I need to do?
We talked a little bit about the emotional stability I think that mom can bring to teenage sons. The other thing that she brings is that she is the first role model of femininity for her son. She's the first role model of healthy feminine sexuality for her son. She models how a woman relates to a man. She models what kind of respect a man deserves to get from a woman. I mean, all these things are very important. We don't think about them as being overt, but I think there are things that are kind of underneath it.
Well, marriage counselor's first question is always, you know, how did mom treat dad? How did dad treat mom?
Exactly.
You know, what was it like in the home growing up? Powerful,
that's
the modeling.
The role modeling. It really is. And you know, you alluded to earlier this generational kind of cycles that take place from one generation to the next, be it abuse, be it addictions, be it abandonment, whatever. And those are exactly the kind of things that we see in our organization tries to break, is some of those generational cycles so that they don't get passed down from one generation to the next.
Should I be encouraging my son to open the door for me to...
That's a great
I really major
point.
on table manners and things like that.
I think absolutely. First of all, manners, that's just a good thing. I mean, it shows respect for other people. It shows respect for ourselves. Teaches young men a lot of lessons. Opening the car door for mom, for girls. I mean, that was what my daughter, that was the first thing she looked for, is whether or not the young man opened the car door for her, because that's what I modeled with my wife.
You've got a great chapter 13, things your son needs to know to court my daughter. Is there a P.S. in that chapter?
Well, it was kind of interesting because my editor for this book was a female, and I tend to, when I write a book for women, I tend to survey and interview hundreds of women, and I probably had more requests for that particular topic than any other thing through this whole book, and so I thought, well, I better write a chapter on that.
I'd just love to sit here and talk for an hour and break it down and give it to you point by point, but you're going to need to get the book. That's My Teenage Son, How Moms Can Influence Their Boys to Become Good Men. And there's so much of the broad stroke here on just parenting and guys, period. You just get it so right, Rick, every time. Thank you.
Well, thank you.